What's up, Viego mans? Patch 12.14 is officially out, and I'm going to give you all the updated information that you need to be successful in Viego in this patch. We'll be going over the changes that they made to Red Smite, Sunfire Cape, Exhaust, and more, and also all the builds that you need to know for patch 12.14. Let's get into it. The first change I want to get into is Sunfire. So Sunfire Aegis has been nerfed a pretty significant amount. So basically what they did is they made Sunfire scale more with bonus HP, which means that champions like Diana, Master Yi, pretty much just like any bruiser who's been building this will do less damage with this item than before. And this is a good thing, but also a bad thing. So Viego did have a pretty successful Sunfire Cape build, or Sunfire Aegis build, which will probably likely just completely fall out of favor after this patch. But the thing is that this build wasn't like the end-all be-all like it was for a champion like Diana. The reality is that this is actually going to make a lot of matchups easier for Viego. A lot of champions that were thriving with Sunfire are no longer going to build it, so champions like Diana will be a little bit easier to face. And I think that this is a good overall change for the meta in general, and specifically for Viego. As some of you may know, Riot is nerfing potions and sustain in lane, which is a very, very interesting thing. It doesn't specifically affect Viego that much. What it does affect is just junglers in general. So basically the thing you need to consider when looking at all these changes, basically Resolve Tree, laning, and a lot of laning runes are nerfed, including potions and biscuit delivery. The thing that you need to consider is what this means is that there's going to be a lot more solo kill opportunities. Basically, if you have less sustain, you're going to be at lower health permanently, which means that ganks are going to be more possible. I mean, if the enemy mid laner is, 50, 60 health lower all the time than he or she normally is, I mean, it's just going to be a lot easier to gank them. There's going to be a lot more solo kill opportunities because you can't just permanently sustain yourself up. So I think that this is actually a good change for Viego in general, because Viego has been a champion that ever since they removed the WE, he has struggled a lot in the early game compared to where he used to be. So perhaps, just a little bit of more early game pressure, making it a little bit easier to get ganks off and get kills due to the fact that enemy laners are going to be just lower HP in general. I think that this is a good change. I'm excited for it. It really only loosely affects Viego, but it does affect him, especially if you're a jungler. It's something that you have to consider. There's a lot of really good in-depth breakdowns that you can find, like LS or Freak. They've gone into this, where they've actually talked about how much this really does impact laners, and it does impact them a lot. And jungle is going to be one of the roles that will benefit from this the most. I'm praying for anything that makes Viego a little bit better at this point. I'll take it, because listen, we've been struggling out here. So yeah, I like this change. So really good news and really bad news. Unfortunately, we will start with the bad news. Now, Challenging Smite is unfortunately, without a doubt, an incredibly broken item, summer spell. And I think that the change that they're making to it is good. I think that Challenging Smite needed to be nerfed. Too many champions were taking it in the jungle, and it just was pretty much far superior to Blue Smite. But this is a nerf to Viego, because Viego is one of those champions that does take Challenging Smite. Now, I will say that I think Chilling Smite is very, very underrated on Viego, especially after the WE change, because locking down and sticking to a target is so much more difficult now that you can't do the hidden W. And I've been noticing that in the games where I take Blue Smite, I feel like I'm able to stick onto targets and late game team fights way better than even with Challenging Smite. Even though Challenging Smite is super strong, perhaps my dueling is a little weaker, but the ability to stick on a target in mid to late game fights with Blue Smite is great. I don't want to oversell the nerf here, but I will say that probably Blue Smite is currently underrated even before the nerf, and I will probably be taking Blue Smite in most of my games after this, at least to just try it out and see how it feels. I mean, they're basically having the damage reduction, which is just a really big deal with Challenging Smite. I would not be surprised if most junglers start moving over to Blue Smite, which is fine. Blue Smite has its own values and things about it that I like. It just means that your 1v1 potential will be a little bit worse. However, not all is lost in the world. Exhaust is being nerfed. Now, it's only a 5% difference in the damage reduction, which honestly I wish they would have hit it more. I mean, they have the damage reduction on Red Smite. I wish they would have hit Exhaust a little bit more. But Exhaust, after the durability update, is just so incredibly broken. I mean, everybody got tankier, but they left Exhaust the exact same. It just didn't make any sense. Exhaust was way too strong. And one of the most annoying and frustrating things is ADCs with Exhaust, because I mean, you have to be able to kill the ADC somehow, but if they exhaust you and you're just sitting there like an idiot getting your entire combo exhausted, it's a real shame. So I think that this change will be good. It'll be noticeable for Viego. When you're exhausted, obviously it won't be as bad, but what I hope will happen is that people maybe just see this nerf and are mind controlled to just not take Exhaust. I think Exhaust will still be good, but maybe it'll demotivate a lot of people from actually taking Exhaust, which is great. You know, a lot of nerfs, people will see patch notes and then they'll just stop playing that champion or stop taking an item because it got nerfed, even if it's still good. My hope is that a lot less ADCs are taking Exhaust now because of this nerf. Honestly, I would have been perfectly fine if they buffed heal as well, just to, you know, try to convince ADCs to stop taking Exhaust. Regardless, if we can even see 10% less Exhaust in our games, I think that's a win, so we'll take that. Okay, now onto the builds. So, in my opinion, there's pretty much only two viable builds this patch: Divine Sunder and Kraken Slayer. Now, I know these are pretty much the standard builds for Viego in general, but after the Sunfire nerf, I don't think any of the tank items are going to be that viable. I mean, Frostfire Gauntlet's still pretty good, but in my opinion, every time I run it, it just feels really inconsistent and doesn't feel like it scales very well. So I think Divine Sunder and Kraken Slayer are the two that you're going to want to go. So obviously Divine Sunder, I personally prefer going Bork first because I feel like it gives me more agency in the early game and more ability to snowball. Usually when I go Divine Sunder first, it's only when I'm behind or if I get set behind early, so you can make that judgment for yourself. And then, you know, just the standard Death Stance, Mob, broken items. For those of you who don't know, I am a Zhonya's believer that Zhonya's is honestly better than GA on Viego. Viego has AP scaling on everything except for his R, and Zhonya's just gives you a lot more outplay potential, and it's a lower cooldown than GA, so personally I think that Zhonya's is a better item on Viego than GA, but you know, that's debatable. That's just I always put it in there just because that's my own like personal secret sauce. But with Kraken Slayer, the Kraken Slayer build is a little bit different than it was before. It was Kraken Slayer into Black Cleaver, whereas now I think that Kraken Slayer into Bork is just the way to go. The main reason why I think this is just because Viego is just really struggling to get kills. I'm sure if you guys play him a lot, you know that Viego's ability to just take somebody out all by himself is very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult to do that with anything but just Kraken Slayer into Bork. So Kraken Slayer into Bork into Death Stance is great. Personally, I prefer Kraken Slayer first instead of Bork because Noon Quiver is so good for clearing the jungle. I don't really think Kraken Slayer is a great second item. I think it's a much better first item into Blade of the Ruined King. You can make that decision for yourself if you want to go Bork first, maybe against like an Udyr or something, someone who like who you may be able to duel if you have Blade of the Ruined King. But usually I think Kraken Slayer to Bork is better. Also, you still can go Black Cleaver as like a third or fourth item if you want, if you need more damage. But generally speaking, I think going Kraken into Bork into Death Stance is good. Against heavy magic damage, you can go Kraken into Wit's End. That is perfectly fine as well. And yeah, so I think these are pretty much the two builds that you're going to want to go. Nothing too crazy, nothing too unique. Obviously, if you play Viego, you're pretty used to these builds. I would like some more build diversity. That's kind of why I like the Sunfire meta a little bit, is it gave a little bit more diversity in what Viego could build. But generally speaking, these are the two items you're going to want to build the 2 item builds you're going to want to go at all times. And yeah, I hope that makes sense. Alright, that is going to be the end of my patch 12.14 rundown for Viego. I hope you guys learned something, and I hope you guys do well on the Rift in patch 12.14. Obviously, Viego's been a little bit weaker lately, and I know a lot of people have become disenchanted with the idea of playing him. But please stick it out. He's still a fun champion, and he can work, especially in lower elos. If you are anything below diamond, you should still stick with Viego, because it's totally possible for you to win and carry on Viego. Anything above diamond becomes a little bit more difficult, but Viego is still a great champion. I still personally like playing him, and I hope you do too. If you learned anything from this video, please leave a comment or consider liking the video and consider subscribing. But yeah, thanks for watching, and have a great day.